It's getting that much closer. The Chiefs versus Bills, revenge, third time around, whatever it is this time to get to this third Super Bowl. We're going over that with Matt Derrick today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome, friends and neighbors. Nice to see you. It is playoff time, AFC Championship week, and we are brought to you this week by FanDuel. Make sure that you get in all the way up to the final drive. FanDuel makes it easy for the NFL playoffs and it makes it more exciting. Right now, new customers can get place a $5 bet and you can get $300 back in bonus bets right now if you win that first bet at FanDuel.com. Matt might be able to help you out with that because Matt knows pretty much everything that goes on in this beat. He is our man on the inside. You can find him at ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as NFL33.com and RGR Football.com. You might have seen me there. Thank you for making us your first listen. We very much appreciate it. Check out Matt. Check out the rest of it. Go to KC Chiefs Corner for Chris and my outlets. We very much appreciate you there because we're free every single day of the week here on this channel, and we like to spread the word. So the word having been spread, Matt, it turns to the opponent, one that we're a little bit familiar with. I think the really interesting part about this particular rematch, and we've had these back and forth with the Buffalo Bills for quite a long time, I do think there's a better mutual respect for these fan bases than maybe we've seen over some of the others or what the other possibility might have been. But just the familiarity with this team and the history, playing them at home makes a difference in my mind. How much of it I think we'll have to see what that actually becomes. But for you, for the feeling in the building, what do you think the difference makes being the Bills back in the AFC CG?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, on one side, you got the Chiefs who are the Chiefs, which is that, winning on Saturday in the divisional round. I mean, it's a nice win, but it's not their ultimate goal. So I felt like it was business as usual on Saturday, especially post game in the locker room. Even if you saw the video of Andy Reid talking to the team, I mean, they made a big deal out of his 300th win, but they made a bigger deal out of that than the fact that they were going to the AFC Championship game. And even Andy Reid's like, hey, it's a normal week this week. That's the way it is. And it just struck me, watching the Bills celebrate their divisional win. I just felt like it was a bigger deal to them. Mm-hmm. And maybe it should be because, not everybody thought that the Bills were going to be here this year. They had a little bit more turnover than usual. They had some cap problems that they had to fix in the offseason. They lost some guys. They're getting older in a couple of places. Still have Josh Allen, and they've still got some talent around him, so there's no problem there. But, so maybe it is a bigger deal for them. And it's just, to me, it's, hey, for whom is the stage going to be too large this weekend? It's not going to be too big for the Chiefs. It won't be, I don't think, too big for Josh Allen, but are there going to be some of his teammates for whom, hey, this is their first time here, and maybe it's going to be too big of a deal? All the nonsense that goes on this week. It's not as bad as Super Bowl week, but let's face it, there's a lot of nonsense that goes on during AFC Championship week because everything's a bigger deal.
There absolutely is. And the talk has already begun. We're going to go over the actual differences with these teams since the last meeting. That's coming up later in the show. And what changes need to be made for the Chiefs this week. We're going to get to that here in a little bit, but I'm stuck on this portion of the hubbub that's already begun. The flare-ups and the trash talking about this is the only team that's beat the Chiefs for real this season. No offense to the Broncos, but that was backups. And it just still strikes me that, okay, it was still a fairly vanilla game plan at a away game for the Chiefs. Now just everything coming together with the roster pretty much back to healthy. We'll hear about Mecole Hardman and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But just at home, the difference Arrowhead makes, I still feel, despite the Bills having been here a number of times, that they're underestimating the impact of the Chiefs playing at home in this game.
Yeah, I mean, weather's no big deal. Buffalo will play in worse weather than what we're going to see on Sunday. I mean, for Kansas City, it might be relatively mild. I mean, no snow or anything. Looks like the temperatures might be in the 30s, but at the kickoff. So that's nothing for Buffalo. This isn't Miami. So you can take that out as being a factor. But hey, is the atmosphere, is the crowd noise, all of these things, because it all gets magnified for the AFC Championship game. Everything's a little bit bigger. I mean, the halftime will be a little bit longer because they have to do some, shows and everything. And hey, pregame is bigger and badder and everything. So, but even during the week, I mean, now you've got to have more media coming in. There's more requirements that, there's going to be guys who have to do media this week that maybe never getting any attention. And now all of a sudden they're going to be on a podium. That's not a big deal for the Chiefs because pretty much every guy that I've seen that's going to be on the podium this week has probably been on a podium before in the postseason. Not that many. I mean, Xavier Worthy might be the only one who hasn't. So, but for Buffalo, I mean, that's going to be for a lot of those guys a different experience. And once again, I mean, no matter what people say and want to talk about officiating or anything like that, I mean, I don't think it's going to be 12-11. It'll still be 11-11, but the atmosphere is certainly going to be the 12th man that the Chiefs are counting on.
And I think they should. It is such a unique advantage. And what we've seen in the past is the Bills have fought hard here too, but there's just something a little bit lacking in being able to deal with what that confine is. For the Chiefs side, though, I also think that maybe for the rookies like Xavier Worthy, there's another one that I think we should talk about here coming up in a little bit that I think can benefit from just what the next ramp up level is for that stadium in this particular game. I still think that there's room for that, and there's room for it to help specifically on the defensive side of the ball. If there's one thing that you think is the most advantage for playing at home in this game, what would it be?
I mean, I think for the Chiefs, it's the routine. I mean, that's important. I mean, as disruptive as everything gets this week, the fact that they've been through this before, it's not that big of a deal. Everybody knows how it works. There's nothing unusual about it. And even game day ends up being the same way. I mean, so many of the players have been through this before. They get it. They know what it is. If it's your first time going through a conference championship game, I mean, like I said, it's not the Super Bowl, but it's still different than a regular season game. It's different from another playoff game, just the entire day. So I do think that adds a little bit to it, and the fact that we even see, hey, I think it could be certainly in this game, you get to overtime. Playoff overtime is different, and not every team apparently knows that. So,
evidently not.
so it's little things like that just the experience do for you. And so I think for the Chiefs, just, being at home, seeing the familiar faces, being able to stay in their routine, I think that is always a huge advantage when it comes into the postseason.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. There are some things that do need to adapt and you do need to change, particularly for this team this week. We're into those coming up next. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets back on your account, win or lose. Right now, FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, for same-game parlays, and much, much more. You can get in the action right now, whether it's the wild card round to see what the Bills and Broncos do, whether it's the Chargers, or you're just getting ready for the divisional round where the Chiefs are back in it. Visit FanDuel.com today. Get signed up. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. Right now, it's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, as far as inside resources go, look no farther than one Matt Derrick. You can find him on ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform. We appreciate your time and insight as we always do, but this is more philosophical than insight. This is, I want to talk about what I think needs to change, what you think needs to change. Andy Reid might not agree with any of it, but there's been a couple of things. And I think, especially looking back at the film from the first meeting, Chiefs have been very, very solid about controlling the ball, both in terms of turnovers and in terms of managing their clock management. I think will be an epic piece of this game yet again. Chiefs need to finish with the ball as far as I'm concerned. But for you, is there one thing that stands out that needs to change from, say, last week or the end of the regular season or since the last time they played this team? What would it be?
Yeah, I mean, and to me, I think it's on the defensive side that they're going to have to change things because, I mean, that's where they lost that game. I mean, the turnovers were obviously huge in that game. The Chiefs had 2 turnovers that were very costly. One early on that really just set the tone for that game, and hey, that goes a different way. Chiefs hold on to the football. It certainly makes the fourth quarter play out in a different way. But remember, the Chiefs haven't turned over the football in 8 games since then. They need to continue that. That streak absolutely has to continue. You got to win the turnover battle. And obviously, hey, if the Bills are a tough defense, so that's going to be a higher challenge this week. The Chiefs defense, I think, is better at taking away the football right now than they were back in week 11. But when I think about why the Chiefs lost that game, a big part of it was because they lost at the line of scrimmage and they lost in the middle of the field. They lost on both sides. Now, offensively, hey, they've got to figure out some things on offense and on the protection and the offensive line, and we'll see if there's any changes this week. I mean, there's no guarantee that the Chiefs will stay with the same lineup this week as they did last week. But defensively, just time and again, I mean, Josh Allen beat them with his legs, getting up the middle. I mean, the Chiefs did a pretty good job of hemming him in, I felt like, on the edges, but they also didn't get a ton of pressure on him. And when they did, he had escape lanes. And he also had plenty of options to throw in the football over the middle too. And that's where Shakir and Curtis Samuel did a lot of their damage. So to me, it's like, how is Steve Spagnuolo going to, because last time he really didn't spy Josh Allen much at all.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to put somebody in the middle of the field to try and keep Allen hemmed into the pocket? How do you defend the middle of the field without sacrificing, the on the edges? Because, hey, once again, I mean, the Bills have receivers that if you get them in one-on-one matchups against anybody other than Trent McDuffie, you got problems. So, that to me is, how do they answer that? Because like I said, they lost the middle of the field last time. I think they're better on the defensive front, of course, than they were in week 11, because now they got Charles Omenihu back. They've got some depth there. They're better rested than they were back then for sure. So maybe there are some advantages built in, but I'm just not entirely sure that Steve Spagnuolo showed his entire bag of tricks in week 11, because we know he sure didn't show all his bag of tricks against the Houston Texans in week 16.
Yeah, that bag has layers, and I think we have a ways to go yet. You hit on one of my specific pieces that I think needs to be done, and that is a change in the way that they deploy the safeties. And I think for maybe not physical reasons, but more mental reasons, I think there has to be a change, because I would like to see them put somebody that is at least aware of where Josh is at all times, because I do think he's been on a run lately, like making good yards, not just yards, but good yards with his legs. And I think I need somebody that feels they can go up and tackle him. He's a sizable dude and doesn't have any baggage, doesn't have any experience having him, beat him to the corner or run through him or something like that. For me, one of the keys to this game is Jaden Hicks playing a bigger role closer to the line of scrimmage, where he, maybe as a nickel backer, can be somebody that can spy Josh Allen and really keep eyes on him. Would that work for you, or do you think that's a mistake?
I love the idea, and I've loved that idea from Jaden Hicks from day one. I mean, he has just seemed like a guy who'd be a perfect spy, because let's face it, he is a tweener. He's a little big for a safety, he's a little small for a linebacker, but he can play both. And I mean, I think he's got the ferociousness and the strength to do both. And when you talk about being able to use him as a spy, I think he has the size and the strength to match up with Josh Allen. That's not a dude that is just going to fly off of Josh Allen or bounce off of him, like a Super Bowl. I mean, I think he's the kind of guy that could meet Josh Allen in the middle of the field, and Josh is going to feel it. So, or at least make him think twice about running over the middle of the field willy-nilly and everything. I mean, before at least making him slide a little early. I think that's a great option. And obviously the Chiefs can rotate too, because Leo Chenal has done a good job there. He's a little bit different version, but I like the way you're thinking about it, because that, to me, with Jaden Hicks, it addresses a lot of the problems. One, he can be the spy that can come up and meet Allen if needed, but two, he's the kind of spy that can also drop back and be in coverage and be in the middle of the field in a zone in case the Bills do want to attack the middle of the field again.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. Now, we've seen the emergence of Khalil Shakir, a guy that I actually wanted to come to this roster when he first came out of college, but he's kind of clicked here. I know Mark Coopy's there. Obviously, they're high on Coleman as well. As you said, on any given play, you have to worry about anybody who's not covered by Trent McDuffie. But overall, I don't feel like this passing attack is as formidable as we've seen them in the past in terms of a knack. I do think it is either chuck the ball up and take a shot, or they'll manufacture touches to Shakir, and if not, Josh is going to run more. I feel like the last option is maybe more so than we're thinking leading up to this. How do you see the passing attack working for them?
Yeah, I agree with you. And if one thing, because even though, hey, I think the Bills are very talented receiver and you don't want to, doubt them in any way whatsoever. And they're deep too. I just don't see a Stephon Diggs on there, as good as these guys are. And it's not even just talent wise. It's, leadership wise, and it's, determination wise, because you always knew Stephon Diggs was one of those guys who was going to do everything he could to try and get his team over the finish line. I mean, he may have had some faults, but wanting to win and trying to drag his team to victory were not amongst those faults. I mean, those were where he was high in. And even just being a force during the week of being one of those veterans that remind guys, you don't get many opportunities here and you got to take advantage of it when you can. The Chiefs even use that message, and they are used to it because it is something that they do on a regular basis. But at the same time, you also have so many veterans on the Chiefs who say that and tell these young guys every single day at practice and during this week, don't take this for granted because you never know when it's going to disappear. I mean, once again, is that a message that the Bills have some guys who can deliver? And in that receiver group, it's young. I mean, it's relatively also playoff inexperienced. So to me, a big part of it is going to be how ready are they for what we talked about in the first segment, the atmosphere, because that's where you can see, guys just not be themselves, and we'll see what happens. But, to me, this game is probably going to be won by the team that makes the fewest mistakes. If the Chiefs can force Buffalo to make mistakes offensively, that's how they're going to win this game.
I think you're absolutely correct. And I have a couple of things that are going to be different. They're going to have to pay attention to in order to not make those mistakes. We're them coming up next. Therapy is a game changer. It helps you manage stress, improve your sleep, and even communicate more effectively. Right now, the big problem is finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule. It can be a challenge. That's where TalkSpace comes in. TalkSpace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With TalkSpace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home, even message your therapist in between appointments, makes life straightforward. Plus, TalkSpace is covered by many insurance plans. For the most insured members, there's even a zero copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off of your first month at TalkSpace when you go to TalkSpace.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code SPACE80, SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to TalkSpace.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code SPACE80 and you'll get $80 off of your first month to show your support for the show. That's TalkSpace.com/LockedOnNFL. Use that code SPACE80. Lot to go over here, and it can go a myriad of ways. We saw the last time these two teams met, Matt, it was Curtis Samuel that had kind of a nice day out for him, second leader in yardage, right? 58 yards, 70 for Khalil. I think the big thing that we haven't seen, we've had some classic moves here, is with Dawson Knox and his partner who didn't play in this last game. Dalton Kincaid should be back for this. I think one thing that has to change, and it plays into what we talked about in the last bet, in that protecting the middle in particular from the tight ends has to extend to the edges as well, because I do think the flats are right for them. I think you will see wheel routes, particularly from Kincaid. The delay releases, I think, are going to be important. So it's not just if you play the safeties down there, but who's going to be on the field for the linebackers. I think the tight ends might be the focus in terms of the passing game for Josh Allen. Does that scare you for this particular game?
I mean, it's worrisome because to me, I mean, the Bills are maybe a little bit of a version of the Chiefs and receiver group because, they don't, I mean, Khalil Shakir is their top dog, but not 1,000-yard receiver this year. They just have a bunch of players who catch the football and can do it pretty well. So they've got a depth that Josh Allen can go toe for toe when it comes to with Mahomes, with throwing the ball to 11 different receivers. And maybe that's notable considering the Chiefs are coming off a game where they just had 4 guys catch the football. That could be a little bit of a concern. I'm not terribly concerned about it, but it could be a concern. But the fact that, like you said, I mean, the Bills have some players back that were not available to them last time. And, it also fits in with a little bit of the changes because it's a subtle change, but the Chiefs, especially in the second half of the season and the last month of the season, to me, they used a lot more multiple safety sets than they did corner sets. And a lot of that, hey, is a little bit to do with the fact that they've had injuries at corner, but they're still not entirely confident in everybody outside of Trent McDuffie. But they do feel like that they've got a bunch of safeties that can cover and even, cover receivers and not just match up with tight ends. So, you see Chamari Connor, you're seeing more of Jaden Hicks, and, they're willing to put Justin Reed and Brian Cook into other situations too and rotate those guys. But we've seen a lot more nickel and dime situations with extra safeties rather than extra corners. And I do think that, to me, it's a lot of a flashback to maybe 2019 when, the Chiefs were really safety heavy. And that's what Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt were doing back then, is that they were just leaning into it. And when they do that, you think about it, I mean, once again, it goes back to that flexibility that as a defense, you don't have to switch off as much. Teams aren't going to know where maybe the pressure is coming from and who's playing in what position and who's dropping back and who's not. I think we saw a little bit of that in the second half against Houston in particular, because I think that Steve Spagnuolo surprised C.J. Stroud a lot of times in the second half with showing him these multiple safety looks and Stroud not being able to identify, hey, who's coming on the blitz and who's dropping back in the coverage. And when he couldn't do that, they were able to get pressure. Now, Josh Allen's smarter. He's seen more, so that's going to be his advantage. But once again, I think that flexibility that the Chiefs have, and, we'll see if it goes back again. I mean, remember, Josh Williams had no snaps last week. And, and at the same time, Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson weren't really playing full workloads either. So, where was that work going? It was going to the safeties.
Mm-hmm. That makes a whole lot of sense. They also have some flexibility on the other side of the ball as well. Last game out against this team, Joe Thuney had the best grade for any offensive lineman. Only difference was he was at guard in that particular game. Will we see him there again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs have to reconsider it and think about it because, that game against Houston over this weekend was, I think, Joe Thuney's worst so far at left tackle. And one thing that, really stuck out to me was that, and I talked with my colleague over at 41 is the Mike Nick Jacobs about this because he made some great points about it, is that, Houston really, they used a lot of wide nine and they used a lot of guys on the outside to attack the Chiefs offensive line. And I think it's getting around now. Now there's enough tape on Joe Thuney. Everybody around the league is starting to realize, you know what? He's a guard for a reason, because he's got those 32.25-inch arms and he just can't reach out and get guys on the outside like that. He's just, I mean, no left tackle's got the speed. You've got to have to be able to lean on your length and your arms to be able to defend guys, when they're coming off the edge like that. So that's what teams are going to do. They're going to attack Joe Thuney that way. So is this the week that you do go back to G.J. Humphries because he does have the length and he does have that ability, and put Joe Thuney back to where he is an all-pro and an all-pro this season at left guard? I think that would certainly help with the run game. Would it hurt the passing game? Probably. But is it, 6 of one, just a half dozen of another?
I think that's the most interesting part is the pass game, because I do think that both Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt would be voting for Joe to come back inside. So let's see what happens there. The other vote that I think that doesn't need to be taken is the fact that I think you have to make the change that after the last time, you have to look at who you're throwing the ball to. And I think obviously Hollywood wasn't available. You want to get Hop more involved, especially after last week's streak. I'm just a little bit shocked that there's not more hype about. They haven't really shown their full hand. I think Hopkins has to be more involved. I think Hollywood has to be more involved. And I think it's all about that left tackle spot, giving them time to do those things. How do you feel that it comes down?
Well, I like the phrase that you hit on there, which is showing your hand, because that to me is what the Chiefs didn't do against the Texans. They didn't show anything for the most part. What they did show was a lot of respect for Derek Stingley, and they showed a lot of respect for that Texans pass rush. So, the limited attacking that the Chiefs did, I mean, by and large, the guys you're talking about, Hollywood and Deandre and Xavier, I mean, Xavier got a little involved a little bit, but most of the time, those guys were clearing out for Travis Kelce in the middle of the field. So they were decoys for the most part against the Texans. That's why they all had, outside of Xavier, they all had 0 catches. They weren't the intended receivers on anything. I mean, they were there to clear out the middle of the field for the tight ends. And obviously, Kelce really fed off of that. And the Chiefs didn't need any more. So they didn't show anymore. I mean, really, to me, the underrated part of that Texans game is that the Chiefs didn't have to open up the bag of tricks to win that game. They were able to win it with defense, special teams, and throwing the ball to Travis Kelce. Well, everybody in the league knows they're going to do that. So, I mean, they didn't have to tap into anything. And you do know that, hey, Andy Reid has picked up something. They got something against this Buffalo defense that they feel like that they could exploit. I'm sure Steve Spagnuolo feels the same way on the other side of the football. But the fact that the Chiefs didn't have to break out anything involving Hollywood and Deandre and really anything special with Xavier, I mean, you're going to start seeing it this week, because this week they know they're going to have to pull out the bag of tricks.
Yeah, they got to dig into it. It's. I think it's going to be back and forth. And like I said, it may come down to the last team with possession wins. I would not be shocked to see that. Turnovers will play a part and can maybe equalize some of that. But long and short, it's going to be another thriller, just like it always is with this team. How do you see it happening?
Yeah, funny you mentioned that maybe coming down to the end in a 1-score game, because that's what I've got it. I just feel like the Chiefs can't get away from these. I mean, they're going to play 1-score games for the rest of our lives, it feels like, especially against a team like this. And I mean, I think the toughest game they're going to face if they win a Super Bowl the rest of the way. I mean, not that the Super Bowl wouldn't be tough against whoever makes it, but the Bills, I think, are the best team remaining outside of the Chiefs, of anybody left in the field. So I don't know if it's going to be a Harrison Butker field goal, a Leo Chenal block, a missed extra point, safety, who knows? But I'm going with the Chiefs 27-26.
Oh, I like it. 26. I want to do the math on that one. It's going to be a lot of fun, folks. What do you think? Leave your thoughts down below. You can check out Matt at ChiefsDigest.com. I'll have my preview for you, as well as my prediction on Friday with Chris. And tomorrow we're talking with Joe Marino over in Buffalo. Just to get a few digs in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you were with us, Matt. I'm sorry you won't be able to join on that one, but maybe next time. Thanks for being with us today and give us your insight.
Always my pleasure, Ryan. Take care, my friends.
Folks, have a good one. Check out Matt and everything that he does. Thank you for checking out NFL33.com. We've seen some new subs over there. If you want to get in on the action, go get sub to that, because we are entering prime draft cycle here. As soon as we get these Chiefs this next trophy, I think it's going to be all draft all the time. Let's see what happens. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next time.